You know your sister wants everything to be perfect, Mom said over the phone, her voice dipped in artificial sweetness. She's bringing her girlfriend this year and, well, your kids can be a little loud. I held the phone tighter. You're saying we're not invited to Christmas? It's not personal, she whispered, like that somehow made it better. We just don't want any distractions. First impressions matter. I glanced at my 7-year-old son and 5-year-old daughter on the couch, cutting snowflakes out of printer paper, giggling as they got glue all over their fingers. My throat tightened. I understand, I said quietly. Have a nice holiday. And I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't text back. I didn't ask why being a single dad somehow made me and my kids unworthy of a seat at the family table. Instead, I made a decision. One I wasn't going to announce. One that would unfold with silence, strategy, and a ribbon tied neatly around it. The next day, Christmas Day, around 11:34 a.m., there was aggressive knocking at my door. My parents, my sister, and the girlfriend, awkward and wide-eyed. Mom was red with rage. What is this, Alex? What did you do? My kids peeked around the corner, confused. I stepped into the doorway, holding a small remote in one hand and an envelope in the other. What's wrong, Mom? I asked. Didn't you like your gift? Their faces dropped when I hit the button. A TV screen behind me lit up with footage they weren't supposed to see. 2 days earlier, I'd stayed up all night digitizing everything. Every voicemail, every backhanded text, every joke email about my parenting, my divorce, my kids being too much for civilized holidays. But it was the dinner conversation from Thanksgiving 2 years ago that I knew would crack the mask. The footage now playing behind me was audio only, stitched together over a black screen. Their voices clear as day. Emily brings nothing to the table except those screaming kids. She should have stayed with that loser ex-husband. At least he knew when to disappear. We don't need her chaos ruining our family image. Was my mother, my sister, and even my father laughing quietly in the background. Back on the porch, Mom's hand flew to her mouth. You recorded us? That's illegal. I raised the envelope. Actually, I said calmly, Pennsylvania's a two-party consent state. But this wasn't recorded in Pennsylvania. Dad blanched. I could see the math hitting his face. I never said a word. I just let your actions speak for themselves. And now, I've shared them with the only people who matter. My neighbors. My boss. The church committee Mom chairs. Even my sisters-in-laws. The Christmas group text had gone out at 10 a.m. sharp. All I did was press send. I told you I understood, remember? I said, voice cool. I just didn't say what I understood. My daughter stepped beside me holding a cookie. Grandma, why are you sad? Mom looked like she might cry. I looked down at my girl and smiled. She's just realizing what Christmas really means. Mom's voice trembled. You humiliated the whole family over a misunderstanding? I raised an eyebrow. Is that what we're calling, don't bring your kids because they'll ruin the aesthetic now? My son peered out the window, watching my father pace back to the car like it might save him. My daughter, still in her glittery reindeer pajamas, held my hand tighter. I leaned against the doorframe. Let's be real, Mom. If it were a misunderstanding, you would have reached out before my email went viral. Her eyes widened. Viral. I nodded toward my phone. Your committee chair called. Said the church is reviewing your position. She used the word tone deaf. And Jenna's father-in-law? The one with the private firm. Mom went still. He emailed me directly, I said. Asked to set up a meeting. Said he always thought Jenna's family was a bit plastic. Jenna's voice cracked behind her. You're just bitter. No one cares what you think. That's the thing, I said, finally stepping outside. You all convinced yourselves I was nobody. That my kids were liabilities, that my divorce made me weak. But I built something while you were busy polishing your silver forks and pretending kindness was conditional. I pointed behind them. My neighbors brought their kids. They brought gifts. They brought love. That's Christmas. Not exclusion. Not performative perfection. Dad returned from the car, silent. Mom looked like she'd swallowed glass. I stepped aside. You're welcome to come in. But my kids come first. If that's a problem, there's the door. They hesitated. I smiled. No pressure. Just boundaries. They didn't step inside. Instead, they stood awkwardly on the porch as if the warmth of my home had become a border they couldn't cross without permission and guilt. I didn't raise you to be like this, Mom snapped finally. No, I said gently. You raised me to stay quiet. To keep peace by swallowing pain. To accept that love was transactional. Dad muttered, it's Christmas for God's sake, Can't we just forget all this? My kids stood behind me listening. And I knew I wouldn't let them grow up thinking forgiveness required erasing betrayal. So I reached back, grabbed the small gift-wrapped box off the hall table, and handed it to my mother. Her hand shook. What is this? Open it. She peeled back the paper, then froze. Inside was a printed photo. A snapshot of my daughter 2 years ago, crying quietly in the corner of a family gathering, ignored, unacknowledged. On the back in thick ink I'd written, "This is what exclusion looks like. Congratulations, you made her feel like a stranger in her own family." She looked up, her eyes brimming. That's not fair. No, I said softly, what wasn't fair was how you made us feel. Year after year. I stepped back and closed the door, not in anger but in peace. Inside, my daughter laughed as hot cocoa spilled on her sweater. My son added another ornament to our imperfect tree. I didn't need revenge, just truth. And it was already ringing louder than bells. The silence from them didn't last long. By New Year's Eve, I received a voice message from my sister. Her tone dripped with faux concern. Hey, just wanted to let you know Mom hasn't been sleeping well. She says she can't stop thinking about the photo. You really blindsided her. Blindsided her? I wanted to scream. But instead, I just exhaled slowly and played the message on speaker. My daughter sitting beside me, hearing every word. She deserves to hear the truth, I said. And truth had become a habit. I spent the next few days sorting through photos, emails, and group chats. Evidence of years of exclusion, passive jabs, and jokes, at my kids' expense. I documented every moment they were overlooked. Then I did something they weren't expecting. I uploaded a private blog post titled, "A Christmas Without Us." It wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It was just real. It told the story of my kids wrapping gifts for people who didn't want them there. It included that photo, my daughter in the corner, and others. Empty chairs with their names taped underneath, untouched gifts left beneath the tree. By the end of the week, 36 members of our extended family had read it. And the messages started rolling in. I didn't know it was that bad. You always seem so quiet. I'm sorry. I stopped coming to those dinners years ago for the same reason. I didn't post it for revenge. I posted it for the quiet ones in every family who are too afraid to say, "This isn't love." But the ripple it caused was just beginning. The next time I heard from my mother, her voice wasn't calm. She didn't call to apologize. She called to scold me. How dare you air private family matters in public? I let her speak. I let her spiral. Then I calmly replied, "It wasn't private when you humiliated my children." Click. The line went dead. But something had already shifted. The silence that once felt like exile, now felt like peace. I focused on my kids, on healing. We started new traditions. Our own dinners. Our own tree. Our own joy. No forced smiles. No tiptoeing around image. And then it happened. An invitation. Not from Mom. Not from my sister. From my cousin Raina, the one I hadn't seen in years. "Hey, my parents read your post. They've cut ties with the family drama too. We're hosting something next weekend. Just the good people. Come." We went. And for the first time in forever, my kids were treated like they mattered. My daughter smiled like she meant it. My son fell asleep in my lap, safe. That night I checked my inbox again. More messages. More people reaching out. One from my aunt, simply read, "We should have stood up for you years ago. Can we still try?" And I realized something. What they tried to destroy had bloomed in the open. A new family. Chosen, not assigned. But the best was still to come. Because my mother, obsessed with reputation, had just made a mistake. She tried to save face publicly. And the internet doesn't forget. Mom's post showed up 2 days after our cousin's dinner. It was a carefully filtered photo of her with my sister and the in-laws, posed smiles, champagne flutes, and that insufferable caption. "Family is everything. So grateful for this beautiful night surrounded by love. 2 hearts #blessed. Except, she tagged the wrong account. Not my sister's real profile. She tagged the parody page, created by someone who had been following my story. The same one that had been sharing screenshots of our texts, selectively blacking out names, and letting people guess which golden family it was. The post went viral. Within hours, people began stitching receipts together. The callous text messages. The exclusion. The way they weaponized family values. Even people outside our circle were commenting things like, "If this is who I think it is, yikes. No wonder your son doesn't show up." Imagine choosing your image over your own grandchildren. Mom panicked. She called me furious. accused me of sabotaging her. But I hadn't done anything. I had spoken my truth. The world simply listened. When I didn't pick up, she left a voicemail through tears. We didn't think it would get this far. You've made your point. Just come home. Please. But home was where my kids laughed freely now. Where no one measured their worth by silence. I looked at the screen. Didn't reply. Not yet. Because I wasn't done. The final move was still waiting. I waited until New Year's Day to respond. Not with a call. Not with an apology. But with a gift. A handwritten letter folded neatly inside a manila envelope, left in their mailbox. Read. You taught me family is conditional. That love comes with rules. That image is more important than inclusion. You taught me everything I needed to unlearn. And for that I'm grateful. I didn't sign it. But I knew they'd recognize my handwriting. 2 days later, a box arrived at my door. Inside were Christmas cards my kids had made over the years, the ones they never displayed. A broken picture frame from my old bedroom. And a sticky note in Mom's writing, "Return to sender." I smiled. Not with pain. With peace. Because closure doesn't always come wrapped in bows or apologies. Sometimes, it arrives in silence and feels like freedom. The next time they reached out, it was my sister. She messaged me after her girlfriend dumped her. Apparently, too many red flags in the family. The perfect image had cracked. I didn't respond. I took my kids ice skating that night. Hot chocolate in hand, laughter echoing across the rink. Because this was real. And finally we were free to write our own version of family. No rules, no roles, no performance. Just us. Oh, healing. Home. Healing. Home.